Alright guys, well, welcome back to Art with the Rupps. Today we have a special treat for you guys. We have a special guest. In fact, it's my dad. He is currently up in North Carolina, and he's going to share a pretty cool lesson with you guys.
So we actually used his techniques and followed along with him, but we came up with our own still life. So I have lemon, strawberries, and basil set up, and then Andrew chose to do a little bud vase with some azaleas, and then of course Mr. Rupps has his tomahawk and baseball.
Of course. So without further ado, Dad, take it away.
Hello, and welcome to another art adventure with the Rupps. Today, I'd like to explore color. Now, the psalmist says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies display his marvelous craftsmanship." For centuries, artists have been trying to follow in those images and create paintings that show colors similar, but never reaching what God can do in the skies. So to start, I'd like to just go over a few qualities of color that most artists agree are probably very important to understand. The first is hue. Hue is simply a word that means color, and for our purposes, it's just people are able to identify red, green, pink. Those are the hues. The interesting thing about hue is that most people, when asked to name colors, can only identify 8 to 12, including black and white. Your eye, the human eye, is equipped that you can see almost 1 million hues. So there are many things your eye sees that you cannot comprehend in your brain. You just know they're there. Second characteristic is value. And value is simply dark to light. It simply talks about how dark a color is or how light it is. Typically, dark values are in the shadow sides of paintings. The lighter ones, of course, are towards the light. Now today, what I'd like to work in is pastels. And what I wanted to show you here is value. Every color has a value. This is the same set of pastels. This one, we've taken out the color. This one shows you the color. Now, many artists will say, value does all the work, color gets all the glory. And when you see these two side by side, you can see what they mean by the glory or the emotional pull seems to be here. The third characteristic I want to identify is chroma. Chroma is actually the Greek word for color, but for our purposes, chroma simply means the intensity of a color. The more chroma, higher intensity, the more your eye will be drawn to it. What I have here is a whole family of greens, and if you squint, you'll notice that one of these squares seems to just shine more than the others. And it's this one. That's actually a pastel called neon green. And the way I like to remember chroma is simply think of chrome and how shiny it is. And if a color is shining like a light in a painting, that means it has high chroma. Low chroma would be more colors like this, which some of these almost disappear. Now, what we're going to focus on today is these are all important, but we're going to take a look at color temperature. Here is a typical color wheel, and if you notice, most artists would agree that if you divide the color wheel like this, yellow, orange, and reds tend to be warm. Green, blues, purples tend to be on the cool side. Now we're going to take it one step further today, and we're going to identify one hue, which will be orange, and we're going to find a cool orange, a medium orange, and a warm orange, and use that because today we're going to do a pumpkin. Now our first step in working with color temperature, we need to identify what I call a touchstone color. A touchstone color is really the one color we're going to start with and compare it to both our cooler and warmer color. So you need a touchstone to know how to begin. Touchstone actually comes from gold miners who had a particular rock, and when they would hit gold and put the gold on that rock and mark it, it would mark differently than any other mineral. So they called that rock their touchstone. That's what we need. We need a touchstone to see how to select other colors to work with. It's very similar to colors are just like people. The only way you know you're tall or short is when you're standing next to somebody. Then you can identify I'm taller or shorter. The same thing works with color. You need other colors around you to identify that particular color. So I'm going to start, as I said, we're going to do a pumpkin. So I'm going to start with a pastel I selected that seems to me to be the most local color of a pumpkin. In other words, when you think pumpkin, that's the color. So this will be our touchstone color. Now hopefully that makes you feel like a pumpkin color. The next step is to identify a color in the orange hue family that would be a little cooler. And what I've picked out is a color that, as you can see, seems to have moved further away from the light. That's a good indication you've got a cooler color. Now I'm going to pick a warmer color, again in the orange hue family. And those will be the three oranges that we work with for creating our painterly pumpkin. Now, before we go any further, however, because we're using such a limited palette, we want to build these colors on a foundation. That foundation is going to be the complementary color of orange. Now, if you look on your color wheels, you can find the complementary color to any color you want simply by going directly across the color wheel. If you look at the color wheel and go directly across from orange, you will find blue. The reason we call them complements is because there is no blue in orange and there is no orange in blue. And the same works for red and green, purple and yellow. That's why they're complementary. So we're going to build a foundation. And again, it's just really fun to go through your pastels and find colors that you like. Now, there's many blues in the family hue, but I picked this one because I like the way it works with our touchstone color. Now that our complementary color, the blue, has dried, you'll notice that it's actually a bit darker than when we first applied it. And that's just one of the characteristics of a pastel. Once it's wet and then dried, it stays a little bit darker in value. Now, the way I would like to begin is we're going to go back and start with our coolest color in the orange hue. And on this particular pumpkin, we're going to have the light coming from this right corner down this way. So I want some of this shadow color to be on this side of the pumpkin. And you'll notice I'm not applying the pastel heavily. This is really, if you're a painter and trying pastels, you want to think about it as this is your brush. Your hand is now your brush. And you can change the quality and the color and the value of the pastel simply by the amount of pressure. Let me show you. I'll put in a very heavy spot. That's what can happen. Same pastel stick. But what I mostly want right now is for the blue, the complementary blue, and this particular red, orange, to mix in your eye so that now, instead of just having orange and blue together, you actually have another color, or maybe several other colors depending on the pressure of the pastel stick. All right, now let's go to our touchstone, which is what we picked out as the most pumpkin color. And just again, I just want to lay it in. All right. Now we're going to go over to our warmest orange. And I'm going to start this over here where the light is coming the most. Okay, now we have put in our blue complementary basement. We are now building the colors. We have a cool orange, we have our touchstone orange, and we also have our warmest orange. Now, what I'd like to do is go back and start to mix them up just a little bit. And this is where you can have a lot of fun just deciding how you want to use them. But the goal is to try to stay with these three colors as long as you can. I want to show you how you can go back to the complementary color, especially on the shadow side. And you get some wonderful muted kind of effects. And you haven't had to change or look for another stick in any way. And here's where the light's really hitting. And now I want to put back in a little more touchstone. And this is where pastels can really shine, because you can just layer. And then I'm going to actually go back to that stick we used to do the drawing, the initial sketch, and just add in a little bit where I see I really want it to be a little darker. So this is that one departure I would make from the four colors that we had picked out, just to give it a little more oomph. And you could decide at any point now that you have a good start if you want to add more colors, and you could make this as refined as you would like to. This is one of the things about using a sanded paper. You have plenty of tooth, they call it. And you can really develop. But what got you here is starting with color temperature and pre-selecting your palette, so that you can spend more time painting and less time mixing colors, or even trying, to find that one color that might be so very, very elusive. And there's our pumpkin. I hope you enjoy doing a painterly pumpkin. Thank you for watching.